Proverbs chapter 9, verses 1 to 10. Wisdom has built her house. She has set up its 7 pillars. She has prepared her meat and mixed her wine. She has also set her table. She has sent out her servants, and she calls from the highest point of the city, "Let all who are simple come to my house." To those who have no sense, she says, "Come, eat my food and drink the wine I have mixed. Leave your simple ways and you will live. Walk in the way of insight. Whoever corrects a mocker invites insults. Whoever rebukes the wicked incurs abuse. Do not rebuke mockers, or they will hate you. Rebuke the wise, and they will love you. Instruct the wise, and they will be wiser still. Teach the righteous, and they will add to their learning. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and knowledge of the Holy One is understanding." Please have a seat. Now, for those who haven't met me, I'm Phil. I'm part of the joint ministry team of Scots and ICC. It's great to be with you today. Privileged to be here with you as we're going to dip in just very briefly to the book of Proverbs. Now, you know, if you're a person who suffers from phobias, and I need the clicker actually. If someone, did I get it? Did I put it in my pocket? Or is the clicker up the back? Can you run it down for me? If you're a person who suffers from phobias, you'll know that irrational fears can be really debilitating, like the fear of public speaking. It's terrifying up here at the moment, especially if you forget your clicker. We've got a friend with agoraphobia. Now, do you know what agoraphobia is? It's a fear of wide open spaces. And her agoraphobia is so severe that she hasn't actually been outside the house for more than 19 years, except occasionally to go to the doctor or the dentist, but even then, she just doesn't want to go. Other people have claustrophobia, which is the exact opposite, panic attacks when you're in confined spaces, which I suspect I'm a little bit like myself. We visited the Chu Chi tunnels in Vietnam, if you've ever been there, and you have to climb down a ladder into these tiny little tunnels, and I got halfway down and I had to get out. Now, how terrible if you suffered from agoraphobia and claustrophobia both at once. That would be a terrible confined phobia. You couldn't be anywhere. Or what about an agoraphobic married to a claustrophobic, or you're dating? Where would you go for a romantic date? An intimate restaurant or a picnic in the park? Psychologists will tell you let's see if that's going to work. Oop. That way. Psychologists will tell you that some fears are irrational and need to be overcome, but some fears, on the other hand, are quite logical fears. Which brings me to the news story a few years ago about the Tasmanian woman who was arachnophobic. Now that means fear of spiders. And her psychologist advised her that the only way to overcome her fear of spiders was to face up to it and go head to head with a spider. So she did. Now, I'm not sure where you go to do that, but she arranged to go somewhere where you could actually pick up a tarantula, a great big spider, which, even though it wasn't technically a poisonous spider, managed to squirt her straight in the face with its silky web-making sauce that left her in agony in a Hobart hospital for almost a week, straight in her eyes. If you thought you were meant to get secret spidey powers from that, you see, you'd be wrong. I'm not convinced that fear of spiders is irrational at all. I'd define that more as a sign of mental wellness than mental illness. Because there are some things in life, you see, that we are meant to be in awe of. There are some fears that are just common sense, aren't there? We've been built with adrenaline for a reason. Sometimes fear is smart and courage is really, really dumb. I actually taught my kids to be afraid of roads and to be afraid of sticking things in PowerPoints. You might have heard on the news a few months back that the Alexa digital assistant was in trouble because when a kid asked Alexa to show her a science experiment, Alexa actually suggested pulling a charger halfway out of the wall and putting a coin across the prongs. Now, Siri would never suggest that. That's why Apple's always better, you see. Because Siri knows you're meant to have good fears, sensible fears. It's only logical, isn't it, that some things like electricity and spiders and storms out in the ocean or tall cliffs with no fence, they're meant to be held in suitable awe. Every now and then we need to be reminded, don't we, that God himself should be held in that kind of fear and awe and not just trivialised. Now that is actually the theme that drives the Old Testament idea of wisdom. In fact, it's a theme that runs right through the Bible. The idea that the fear of the Lord, that having a due sense of awe, is the fundamental starting point for getting life right. The book of Proverbs, if you've ever read right through it, it's kind of fun. There are lots of catchy little sayings in the book of Proverbs, little bits of wisdom, the sort of wisdom you pay for in self-help books at bookshops or from expensive life coaches. But the good thing is, here in the Bible, it's actually free, and better still, it's from the God who made us. Proverbs is an Old Testament book full of wise words to help Israelites negotiate daily life. At every point, shaped around that really sensible fear of the God who made them. Fear God, that's where wisdom starts, and you would be a fool to do anything else. Did you notice in our reading? First of all, it comes up... what did I do? I went backwards. It starts even earlier than that, the book of Proverbs, chapter 1, verse 7. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and discipline. Now that's a Hebrew parallelism where knowledge in the first line equals wisdom and discipline in the second, which means, like I said, you can choose wisdom and discipline by fearing the Lord, or you can be, technical word, a fool and despise wisdom by taking God lightly instead. That's the fork in the road right there. The fear of the Lord is the beginning, it's the foundation of a life of knowing how things work, of a life of wisdom and discipline. And it's a beginning in the same way as a concrete slab is the foundation of a house. Everything else is going to be built on top of that strong foundation. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of everything else that the book of Proverbs has on offer. Start here. Now, of course, you might choose, you might be a visitor today, you might be someone not quite convinced about what Christians are on about. You might say, surely science has disproved God altogether. I'll make that my foundation. All this is just superstition like a horoscope. All this God stuff is so limiting. We know things like fidelity and personal commitment that come out of this Christian ethic of fear of God. They're just oppressive and old style and restrictive. And you're free to map out life that way if you choose and see what happens. As one wise mum we knew said to her daughter 15 years ago, well, let's see how that goes for you. Sadly, I can say, looking back for that girl, not so well, in all kinds of tragic ways. They're the choices, fear of God or not. But understand that as far as the wisdom in the book of Proverbs goes, this is the starting point, and the same idea is repeated over and over again. So, chapter 3, verses 7 and 8. You might go back and read Proverbs this afternoon. It'll take an hour or so. Just keep watching out for this same idea. Don't be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and shun evil. This will bring health to your body and nourishment to your bones. So being wise in your own eyes, who made you the expert on everything? Don't just be wise in your own eyes. That's crazy, says Proverbs. Fear the Lord and shun evil. And we'll see as this unfolds are two things that go hand in hand. Chapter 8, same idea. The whole chapter is wisdom talking, pictured as a woman, lady wisdom. Would have been crazy to have a bloke, I think, just two things don't go. She says from verse 10, to fear the Lord is to hate evil. I hate pride and arrogance, evil behaviour and perverse speech. The book of Proverbs says wisdom is more precious than jewels. Want some precious gems? Well, here's the start. Fearing the Lord, hating evil, getting rid of things like pride, getting rid of arrogance, getting rid of evil behaviour and perverse speech. In other words, just fear the Lord in what you do. One more stopping point, chapter 9, verse 10. That verse we had in the reading that brings it all together in a single sentence summary. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. So you want wisdom? Well, you start by recognising that God is boss and you're not. Even in the small stuff, even in the stuff that nobody sees, and particularly in issues of justice and compassion and integrity and truth. Now, if you were an ancient Israelite and you were reading these words in the book of Proverbs, let me tell you, there's nothing new in the idea that you're meant to fear the Lord. Because this is an idea you would have learnt from your mother's knee. This was the big idea right from the time Moses gave Israel their law, right back at the start. There's a sense right from the very beginning that a healthy fear of their God is meant to shape every part of the way they live. Even in the secret things, even in the mundane things, the way they treat the blind beggar on the street, especially in the way they refuse to take advantage of the weakness of another Israelite. Leviticus chapter 19, as Moses gives Israel God's law, watch for 3 do nots followed by 1 but, all right? Do not defraud your neighbour or rob him. Do not hold back the wages of a hired man overnight. Do not curse the deaf or put a stumbling block in front of the blind, but fear your God. I am the Lord. See, for Israel, fearing God is meant to produce very practical fruit. Because the neighbour you're thinking to cheat has got a very powerful friend. The deaf guy you mock because you know he can't hear, he's got a very powerful ally who hears everything. So 1, don't defraud him. 2, don't hold back his wages when he needs to feed his family. 3, don't take advantage of his disability, but fear God. Fearing God is meant to change the way the people of Israel treat one another. It's summed up in Leviticus 25 verse 17. Do not take advantage of each other, but fear your God. I am the Lord your God. And so this same idea plays itself out in countless little proverbs in the book of Proverbs. The way you treat your brother or sister, your fairness in business, the way you run away from evil. It's all going to flow from this one beginning. Fear the Lord. Because in essence, to fear the Lord means to hate what God hates and to love what God loves. Not just in your words on Sunday, but when you go to work or uni as well. So, you run the corner shop. When the poor man comes to buy the flour and sugar for his family at your shop, and you've calibrated the scales in your favour, so he's only getting 900 grams when he's paying for a kilo, guess what? He's not the fool. You're the fool. Because God hates that. Little things like that. Proverbs 11, verse 1. The Lord abhors, he hates dishonest scales in your little corner shop. You think no one knows. You think you're getting away with it. The Lord hates that. But accurate weights are his delight. You say you fear God, check your scales. Recheck your contracts. Make sure you are fair in your dealings. Make sure that when you're running the accounts department of your big multinational company, you're not squeezing your suppliers by refusing to pay to the 90-day mark so they go under. Little things like that. Which is astonishing, isn't it? The God of Israel, not only did he create the stars, the universe, but he's passionate about your honesty in business or as a student or as a friend. Or whether you're a liar. Proverbs 12 verse 22, the Lord detests lying lips, but he delights in people who are truthful. Or this next one, Proverbs 14 verse 31. Here's what it boils down to. And it's exactly what Moses said back in Leviticus. He who oppresses the poor shows contempt for their maker. But whoever is kind to the needy honours God. Now, the other morning, I paid for breakfast for a homeless guy in a cafe. He was going around the tables hassling everyone for money. Everyone else was trying to avoid him. So I said, hey mate, can I buy you some breakfast? Now, I'm not telling you that to pat myself on the back or to boast about it. Just to say that when I did that, I didn't really even stop to think about the fact that in doing that I was actually honouring God. Which means it was probably one of the wisest things I did all week. So maybe I'm starting to catch on to what it's about. Starting to master, I guess, the art of living. Fearing God more than loving stuff. Because the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And wisdom, you see, is the beginning of a well-lived life. A well-lived in God's eyes. In the words of Proverbs 15, verse 16 and 17, better a little with fear of the Lord than great wealth with turmoil. Better a meal of vegetables where there's love than a banquet with hatred. Because you see, fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And wisdom is the beginning of a well-lived life. And the quick fixes and the fast tracks and the selfish attitudes and treating God like a commodity, you can turn him on and off, he's there for your convenience. That's not fearing God. Proverbs has a word for that stuff, and the word is fool. Don't be a fool. Now, you might know that there are lots of things in the Old Testament, Israel's laws, that are transformed by the coming of Jesus. Laws that end, prophecies that are fulfilled. But the thing about wisdom like this is that wisdom remains and is still wise. And the fear of the Lord is still step one, which is what Jesus says himself as he reminds a crowd in Luke chapter 12 that God hears every whisper, night or day, in a room or rooftop. His words are aimed especially at the religious hypocrisy of the Pharisees, who other people fear. They fear the Pharisees. They're powerful, they're religious, they seem upright. But Jesus says, don't fear them. You're fearing the wrong thing. Don't worry what other people think. This is wisdom. Fear the Lord instead. Here's what he says. I tell you, my friends, don't be afraid of those who kill the body and after that can do no more. But I'll show you who you should fear. Fear him who, after your body has been killed, has authority to throw you into hell. Yes, I tell you, fear him. In other words, when you properly fear the Lord, you don't need to fear anybody or anything else. Hold God in reverence and awe because ultimately he's judge. Then don't worry about your Pharisee friend. Don't worry about anyone. Which of course is not irrational at all, but liberating. Fear God, fear no one else. Of course, again, when you look at that, you might say, well, the whole idea of God judging, that's so out of date. That's such an archaic idea that there's some kind of final judgment. At which point, of course, if you say that, you've got to abandon any idea of ultimate justice. Which I reckon whenever we personally are ever the subject of personal injustice, it's something we cry out for instinctively. If only at the heart of the universe there was justice. If we dismiss that, we're just left with a world that's an ever-increasing cycle of immediate vengeance, trying to get even. The scales have got to be balanced here and now. And we're left with judgmentalism as well. We've got to be the final arbiters of right and wrong for everybody else, unless we leave it in God's hands. Well, Jesus says, don't fear self-righteous hypocrites like the Pharisees. Don't fear the judgment of anyone else, just fear God. It means there's no need to be crushed by peer pressure, what other people think, or the need to conform to misguided expectations from your family. There's no need to fear failure or carry regrets. There's no need for shame if you come from a shame culture. Jesus says, just fear the one who counts and make sure you put things right with him. That is wisdom. You might remember the famous second thief on the cross beside Jesus. That's what he gets right. Right at the last minute. Absolutely right. Remember the story? The criminal on one side is insulting Jesus, even as they're both hanging there. And the other guy, the guy on the other side, rebukes him and says to him, don't you fear God? We're getting what we deserve. This guy is completely innocent. See, he does fear God, and so he throws himself on the mercy of Jesus. And he says, Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Which Jesus absolutely will for him and for you and me. You want to know real wisdom? It starts right there. And if you haven't done it already, it really is the smartest thing you could ever do. Turn to Jesus and say, remember me, because as I look at a cross, I see a king taking the punishment I deserved. Friends, the art of living well starts right there. Wisdom starts right there. And it's not an irrational fear at all. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. Let's pray. Lord God, we respond to you in fear and awe.